This is Greg Troutwine with Maritime Reporter TV, and we're very pleased to be joined today by Jesse Vecchione of Weathernews to discuss this long-tenured maritime services company and its position in helping ship owner operators run more efficiently, safely, and with greater clarity on emissions. So, Jesse, just to start us off, can you just give us a brief career background? Specifically, how long have you been with Weathernews, and what are your current scope of your responsibilities?
Yes, thank you for the opportunity to speak with you. My name is, as you said, Jesse Vecchione. This is my 23rd year at Weathernews. I actually got this job right out of college, 2 weeks after I graduated from Linden in Vermont. So it's been quite a sojourn for me. I grew up on Cape Cod, and I lived around the ocean my whole life. So being a part of a maritime organization was sort of a no-brainer for me. I did spend a little bit of time at Woods Hole Oceanographic Institute while I was in school, which helped me position myself for a role within the private industry in weather and marine meteorology, which is what happened. And then after hiring, I actually moved around to Oklahoma for a while in operations, doing hurricane forecasting, and then moving to the voyage planning, which was basically what I did for the majority of my time at Weather News. Moved to Japan for 5 years, and then Europe as an operations leader, and then back to the United States doing business development from 2018 through today. At which point now I'm managing the entire Americas for business planning.
I appreciate that background. So, I'm sure that many watching know the Weather News name, but can you take a deep dive and give our viewers a by the numbers look at the company today? I'm just looking for something that gives shape, size, depth, and breadth to the Weather News offering.
Sure. Weather News is a globally understood name, but especially in Asia, in Japan, where we are covering all aspects of weather, where we have our own TV channel. Have the leading mobile app in Asia, and we're in the process of actually getting that started in the Americas as well. But the focus globally has been up until today mostly maritime. So we are providing a variety of services to the maritime industry, mostly the commercial transportation industry, where we do around 8,000 to 9,000 vessels daily under some sort of service. We have a 50 plus year proprietary data archive of different types. So a lot of companies are professing to have lots of data but they're typically leveraging publicly available information. But we have our own proprietary data sets that we can leverage. Our global office is in Japan, but we actually have offices all over the world. And in terms of operations, we're in Japan, Singapore, Southeast Asia, Greece, the Netherlands, Paris, Copenhagen, and in Oklahoma, where we have a very large operations center. So the coverage is quite large. And like I said, we are globally known, especially in Asia, but also in the United States, where we've had a presence going back to really back to the 1970s, if you want to go back that far, if you want to cast a wide net as to how Weather News has grown as a business. So one thing I often say about Weather News is that Japanese built ships are often underdescribed in the sense that they're very good performers, but the Japanese shipbuilders might be a little bit modest about how good performance they actually are. And I think traditionally we've had a sort of similar mindset where we're a little bit humble about how we want to say how good a service that we have. But recently with our new CEO, there's been a pivot where we're trying to be more upfront about all of the things that we can offer.
To set the context of our conversation, can you give the
Uh-huh.
background on the creation and evolution of Weather News as a company and
hmm
its current offering to the maritime sector today?
Yeah, it's a very interesting story. It goes actually back to the 1950s, where there were some members of the Navy that were helping to develop voyage planning for the larger vessels in the Navy fleet. And then in the 1970s, they actually created a private company using the information that they learned when they were in the Navy, which grew into a company called Ocean Routes in the 1970s. Ocean Routes is known by a lot of maritime professionals by developing what's known as the Ocean Routes Clause, which was basically one of the basic ways to understand performance, and which came up as a part of the energy crisis in the 1970s. But we really struck gold as a company, Ocean Routes that is, when we started convincing companies to take Great Circle routes in the Pacific Ocean. There was no other company that did that up until the early 1980s. No masters wanted to go into the North Pacific, northern, like the Arctic Ocean, not the Arctic Ocean, the Bering Sea, because they just thought that the weather was going to be worse the farther north you go. But actually, if you think about the way low pressure systems are, if you're going from the Pacific Northwest to Asia, once you get north of the low center, the weather actually becomes following and better, and you will save 5, 6, 7 days by going up that way.
Huh.
So it took some buy-in to get there, but we finally got a name for ourselves, and the word spread really quickly. And that's where Ocean Routes became like a globally known company and the first real global company providing routing solutions to the shipping industry. Uh, Ocean Routes was bought by Hiro Ishibashi in the early 90s, and that's when we became Weathernews, which had already been established as a company in Japan to support the maritime industry, and things sort of blew up from there. But this routing tech actually has very, very deep roots going all the way back to the 50s and 60s in the military. And here we are now, leveraging a lot of the same the kind of philosophy, but using digital tools and technology to help make it more efficient and to allow us to really focus on the troublesome, exceptional cases where we need to make sure that ships are staying safe.
Okay. Oh no, it is absolutely fascinating. So
Mhm.
when you look at Weather News and the offering today,
Mhm.
what are the core products and services offered by Weather News?
Mhm.
And while I'm sure all fleets have their own nuances and priorities, how do companies typically use your services?
Sure. So there's a couple of different buckets in how we're providing service. Traditionally, we've done a lot of work into the route optimization, which was just voyage planning or weather routing, but developed into something that was called optimum ship routing, which was back in the early 2000s into 2010s, which was something I was fortunate to be a part of developing back in that time. So it started from just basically going from point A to point B at some calm sea speed, but it developed into providing options for the operators to understand how you can get from point A to point B while considering some business priorities to help make the voyage more efficient while also keeping safe. But along with that, we also had performance monitoring for customers that wanted to know how ships were performing, but they didn't actually have control of the vessel. Say, for example, an owner of a ship that had time chartered a vessel out to another company, they might want to track the ship to make sure it's safe, and they might want to get a report to see how the vessel performed as per the charter party warranty, which is something we also developed. And then finally, we had lots of services to develop around safety, just first and foremost. For example, ports or vessels that don't need the routing, but they might be going, for example, ship to shore vessels going out to the Gulf of Mexico, and they want to make sure that they're going to be able to accomplish what they need to do out there. They might have very strict criteria in order to berth or to tie up to a platform or something like that. So we have this go or no go decision making that's available. So this is something that we've been developing over time, and basically what we've done recently is to try to make it more efficient and available by API, or to leverage the use of AI to make things just faster and more efficient. But one thing that we've tried to maintain over the entire time was to keep the human risk communication available especially when it's necessary. When everything's going fine, they might not need a human to be involved to explain what's happening. But when things are going sideways in the middle of the North Pacific Ocean and there's a captain that wants to speak to somebody who really knows what they're talking about on shore, we want to be available and speak to them to reassure them in human terms about what's going on, provide them options, and to hold their hand to make sure that they're doing the right thing at that time.
With so
Yeah,
much
yeah, yeah.
weather information out there,
Mhm. Mhm.
what is the real value as a ship owner, a vessel owner that Weather News offers?
It's a good question, and it's something that we think about all the time. And I think that it's a matter of sticking to our guns in a certain way, and making sure that our service philosophy remains consistent because it's worked up until now, but also taking advantage of what's available in with the modern technology. So I think every company in the past 10 years went through some sort of digital transformation in order to make themselves viable in the 2020s. And our customers did, and we did as well. And I think that at one point there was a reluctance for us to move into that space because we always felt like the human element and having human risk communication was one of the things that made us unique and kind of placed us in the forefront of the industry. But it was clear after a while that we needed to make a pivot and become more digitally immersed. And this is something that we started back probably around 2021, 2022. And pretty much at this point, we have done our own digital transformation in order to make sure that we have, uh, you know, um, there's a lot of discussion about weather being commoditized, like you said. I think anybody that has an internet connection could use tools to create a product that would try to push like a forecast or try to do weather routing type solutions. But first of all, you need to have the best quality weather data to start. And we actually have our own proprietary forecast contents. We just have a new wave model that just came out earlier this month. That's been proven to be higher quality than a lot of the competitors that we have. That's one thing. But you also need to know to have the understanding to how to utilize the data and make it actionable. So, um, for example, charterers have these uh, they think that they might be able to put together voyage estimates where they're not maybe there's some basic numbers that are coming from a voyage estimate and they think they can really make bets on them. But when you're out at sea and the weather is rough and you're a captain, you're not necessarily going to be doing exactly what the charterer and the people shoreside thinks. So there needs to be some understanding about the complexities of actually being at sea. So I think Weathernews voyage planners and risk communicators are sort of the interface between what the expectation is shoreside and what the masters are actually facing on the ocean. Because even though you can commoditize it to a certain degree, you can't completely systematize the way a vessel is moving across the ocean. You have a sailboat, you understand that like tacking from point to point, you might have an idea of how you're going to do it, but there's going to be tactful adjustments over the course of the voyage. And so you can get an idea and a strategy, but the tactics might change as you're going, especially when the weather's heavy and you might have some safety concerns. So having well-trained human risk communicators interfacing between what the system might be generating and the people shoreside might be expecting is extremely important. And it's not something that AI or systematized weather solutions have really been able to wrap their head around. And that's where we kind of stand and we continue to lead in that way.
I don't want to misspeak here, but I believe you said you have a new product regarding wave data or wave insight, wave information. Can you take a little bit deeper dive into exactly what that is?
Sure. Basically, we generate our own weather forecasts. And one of the more critical aspects of weather that for the voyages, for the ships that are at sea is wave height and wave direction. Not only is it important for the captains to understand what the weather forecast is, but we need to know, we're going to use that information to dead reckon the vessel to understand what their position is going at some speed going across the ocean. Because if you don't know where the ship is in 3 days and you miss it by 100 nautical miles or so, the weather forecast will be different, and the decision-making process at that point, when there might be a critical decision to make, will be wrong because it's not in the right place. So what we've just released earlier this month is a higher quality weather wave information data, which is really going to help inform the position of the vessel and also help with the master's decision-making process. In terms of the quality of the resolution, we've done comparisons against the well-known global models like DCMWF, and the performance is much better. So we're really excited about that. And the granularity and the time steps involved is actually more comprehensive than our competitors as well. So this is something that we're really excited about.
Do the majority of your owner operators use the information directly actionable from the ship? Do they do it from the shore, or is it a mix of the two based on the client?
It's a really interesting question, and we could talk about this for a long time because there's a lot of nuance involved. But basically, if the person on the shore has marine experience and has been at sea, generally the conversation goes very well from master to shore side, and when we're involved in the communication process. Uh, when the person who's on shore is their background is in finance, or they're more into chartering, or their main KPI is profit and loss, but they don't understand the nuance of how it is to be at sea, this is where we encounter problems because they'll see voyage estimate calculations and we'll have a hard time parsing why things aren't happening the way they thought they were going to happen. So, for Weather News perspective, we always love it when the decision maker, especially if they've been a customer of Weather News as a master, because they'll remember the way we supported them in the past and they will trust us. So that's the best possible situation. So finance people and chartering people tend to have very important jobs, and I don't want to demean them or throw them under the bus necessarily, but it might be hard to explain exactly how difficult it is to parameterize all of the problems that happen when a ship is at sea. And the only reason I know, I mean, I've gone fishing on Nantucket Sound and I've gone out, out to the canyons a couple times for tuna, but I've never gone across the ocean, but I've spent thousands of hours speaking to masters, and I just know that they sometimes are terrified at sea. And you can't really communicate that in a way that will be understandable to a guy who just wants to know why they're going to be losing so much money on a voyage. They just don't get it. And it's not because they're not humans, it's just that they're working with a different set of expectations and parameters. So this is where things become very difficult. And every single company is going to be different because of what the responsibility of the person is shoreside. And one of the challenges that we've had recently is that with the digital transformation, a lot of people are cutting out the safety minded person in the decision making process shoreside, and because they don't think that it might not be necessary anymore. But it's definitely necessary, 100% necessary. It might become more efficient because we have better tools. But still, it's 100% required, and we shouldn't be making any assumptions that with this improving technology that safety is not going to be something that we have to think about in detail. Mhm.
As you know, there is a myriad of new weather monitoring and reporting services, or whatever you want to
Mhm.
call them, companies. When you look at all the big tech coming into the fray, what
Yeah.
specifically is it about the weather news service or offering that you see as the key differentiators?
Right. Well, the first thing I have to say is companies like SoFar and even the small startups that people might not take seriously, dismiss them at your peril, because a lot of these companies have some unique value add, some angle that actually makes sense. And we made the mistake, not recently for sure, but probably 20 up to 2019, 2020, of not taking them seriously. And I did meet with SoFar while they were another company altogether. They had a different name, and when they were just doing like the buoy like measurements and things. And I thought they were a smart company, and I had no idea that they were going to be where they are now. I think that SoFar is an interesting case, and you can add this or subtract it if you like. But the thing about them is that their unique value proposition is the use of buoys. But they're actually, I mean, there's many different companies that leverage their own buoy sets, and buoys are publicly available as well. And I think that they, for better or for worse, are now under control of venture capital, which means that they're being driven for profit and loss in a way that's outside of the control of the people who had that original idea. So I don't know if SoFar is actually the same company that they were when I found them interesting, but I can tell you that they bring a very good product to the table. And like I said, like we have to pay attention to the new technology that they bring because if we just dismiss them as being startups with as vaporware, we might miss out on something. And I want to believe that we have all the best ideas and we thought about everything, but that's just not true. We can't get cocky about this. I mean, we come up with great ideas and we're really excited about them, but we have to keep our eyes open.
We can't have a good technology discussion without talking about artificial intelligence.
Yep.
And you've already referenced it, but can you take a little
Hmm.
bit of a deeper dive into specifically how AI is being used to make weather news services better, whether inside
Yep.
your own four walls or out on
Yep.
ships?
Sure. There's a lot to talk about in this way too. We started using machine learning a few years ago in order to go through incoming messages because we get over 10,000 messages a day, sometimes 20 to 30,000 messages, and we want to make sure that we're flagging messages where masters have a problem. We want to make sure that we see them as soon as possible. But last year we want to say that we were the first company to actually have agentic AI in our platform. So then now if you go into our SaaS-based system, you'll actually have an agent available to speak to you about anything that you would like to about using the data that they have in the system, or if they want to ask general questions about the weather forecast. Even if there isn't a ship that's using our service, you can go and you can ask questions about what's happening with the weather. So this is something that we've rolled out to our dashboard. And also we have a new product for the captains. It's called Sea Navigator for Master, and this also has agentic AI. So you can float different types of routing ideas, and even if we're not a part of the loop, the AI has some knowledge about how routing is done, and will be able to give you some idea about the quality of a route proposal. So this is also something that's available. And in addition, all of the people within our operations and our salespeople are being trained in how to utilize AI for just to make sure that we're speaking at the same level as the people that want to talk to us about things. One interesting thing that I found is that some people really want to talk about AI, and we have to be ready to speak to it on the terms that they want to. But on the other hand, some people don't want to speak about AI at all. And in that case, we find ourselves like speaking about the modules within our system and the AI. Like they might say, well, I don't trust what the response is from the AI. And it's not necessarily an indictment of what's happening on our system. It's more of a kind of general question. Like I don't trust how AI works in a very general sense. So I'm never going to try to defend like how AI is being adopted on a global scale, but it's happening everywhere. So, it can be a tricky question depending on who you speak to. But I mean, basically, to go back to your initial question, I mean, it's already adopted in all of our services, and we advertise ourselves as the first company to have it. But it's not just a chat-based AI. Like we want to have more agentic AI available so people can really, really work with them in a way that like a lot of the new people are new people. A lot of the new workflows that you hear spoken about, where you're actually having AI working for you on the side instead of just being like a simple chatbot. It goes way beyond that, and we want to leverage all the data in our system. Like I said before, we have data that sometimes goes all the way back to 40 years. Like we want our customers to be able to access that information and give that to them, because this is one of the benefits of partnering with Weather News, where you have this big wealth of data at your disposal.